ल म त क्लास सुरु गर्न पाइथन थियो ल ल Hey guys, are you able to hear me?
Yeah.
You don't see my screen here, right?
Yeah, we can see.
Is there somebody new today? Zoo. We have two zoos. Okay. All right.
Yeah, that is me, Fazong.
Let me start sharing. Or am I already sharing?
You are sharing the YouTube.
Okay, nice. All right. Why am I sharing this? Because this is where you will get additional content if you're interested in learning more stuff about Python or anything IT related in general. Not only Python. I have uploaded videos for pattern examining process, other Python modules, web development, encryption, and there will be many more that is in the plan. So if you want to, you can subscribe and get notification when I upload new videos. That way you don't miss any new contents that I share. All right, so with that, I am gonna start. Was there any questions from the previous sessions? Anything? Anybody has any question? No. So I am planning not to go over assignment solution that I gave, the assignment that I gave yesterday in the last session. I will share the solution in the PDF or of the presentation that I will share after today's session. So if you want, you can go over that if you do not have the solution yet. So look over those, and if you need any help, you can ping me or come back in another session and ask me a question about it. But it's gonna take additional time, and we have to cover up certain things that we missed before we jump into the content of today, which is the loops. So before getting into loops, I have to you guys have to understand the list and dictionaries, or more particularly list. So that's what we're going to start with, and then move to loops. All right, so today's main content again is continuing with the control statements. We're going to cover while loop, for loop, and few examples with break, pass, and continue statements. So before that, I'm gonna start with the missing portion from session 2, which is list. So who remembers what is list? We have done a few examples so far. Anybody that want to pitch in? What makes a list?
Just a variable, right?
Oh yes, it is some kind of data type, but rather than saying variable, I would say it's a sequence data type. And do you want me to share that presentation where it shows all the data types? I can if you want to, just to recall.
No, I'm fine.
Okay. So it's one of the sequence data type, and if you see the example here, this bicycles is a list. Why it is a list? Because we are including different elements. Like we have 4 elements separated by commas, right? You see this? And these are enclosed with square brackets at the front and the back. So that is exactly why this is a list. And this is the easiest, straightforward way to create a list in Python. Just use square brackets, and you can put whatever you want to put, separated by commas. All these elements will be different items within this list, and you can access each element or by index numbers or a range of elements using slicing operation that we went over last session. So this is why indexing and slicing is so important. List is one of the most used data type when we progress to advanced level or intermediate to advanced level Python programming. And without indexing and slicing, you are not going to go too far. So that's why I spend a lot of time going back to show you some examples of indexing and slicing in the last session. And here we're going to use some of those. So everybody understands list now? Any questions? It's just a bunch of elements separated by commas. And can I have different types of elements inside a list? The question.
Yeah.
Like here, we only have string data types, right? This is a string, this is a string, this is a string. Can I mix and match all the other different data types inside a list?
Yeah.
Yes, and the answer is absolutely we can, and that's one of the biggest plus point of using a list. It doesn't have to be fixed to certain data types, and it doesn't have to be fixed to a certain length. Once we start a list with these 4 elements, we can easily drop one of the elements, add new elements, copy this whole list to another list, or do a bunch of other stuff. It's very versatile, and it is a mutable data type. That is why it is widely used. Okay, so when we run this, and I'm trying to run this with print bicycle index number 0 and doing a title here. So everybody remembers title and the index, right? Nothing new in this. So what do you think will this print out?
Track.
Bicycle 0, which is the first element, track, and then I'm doing title. So T would be capital letter. Waiting for it to connect. Okay, there we go, right? Everybody understands this? Okay, how do we access last element in the list again? Using index number with negative indexing, right? So the last value will be -1. So if we do -1, it will just print specialized, which is the last element. Again, nothing new here, using f string with that message. So I'm creating a message with f string and then printing the message. It will print my first bicycle was a trick, because we are using the same title that we used to create trick here inside this f string. We already know f string, we already know index 0, we already know title used under string data types, title method. So there's nothing new here. Things will get more interesting. So here I have motorcycles with Honda, Yamaha, and Suzuki as elements in the list. So when I print motorcycle, it will print the whole list, and then if I want to print just single element, again I will do indexing. Right, so what do you think this will print? I have 2 print statements here. Both are printing what?
The motorcycle shape.
Yeah, but then between those prints, what am I doing here? So think about it.
Replacing Honda with Toyota.
Right. So this again, this is assignment operation. So with that assignment operation, what happens is this right side value will be assigned to the left side value. So left side value is motorcycle 0, which is Honda. So instead of Honda, I will get Toyota, and the rest will be the same. Notice that instead of Honda I have Toyota. Anybody confused with this? Good. So let's move on. Appending elements to the list. So I already have a list here. Again, I'm doing the same thing, printing twice, but between those prints, I have append method initiated here. So by calling this append method, I'm adding this new element, but where am I adding it?
At the end.
At the end, yes.
At the end.
Append will always add to the end. Nice. Okay, so here we are defining what? What is the syntax? This is an empty list, okay? We can easily create a list without any element with that syntax. And we can do append multiple times and keep adding one item at a time to the back of that list. So at the first append, there's nothing in the list, it's empty list. So it will just add Honda, and then it will add Yamaha after Honda and Suzuki after Yamaha. So we started with empty, now we end up with 3 elements in the list. Good. Inserting elements into a list at any position that you would like. So here I'm using insert method of list. So list comes with a bunch of built-in methods, and I'm just going through a few of those most likely that you're going to use in this intermediate or beginners level. And so append, pop, insert, all these are delete, all these are mostly used at this level. So that's all. I'm just trying to give you just an idea of how lists work and how we can use that to our advantage in creating more complicated or complex programs. So in this case, what am I doing here? I started with this list. I'm just printing that here, and then at index 0 I'm adding another element, Toyota. So index 0 is where? At the beginning, right? That adds Toyota right here, and everything shifts 1 to the right. And then after that I'm also adding Nissan at index 2. So who can tell me where this Nissan will go?
After Honda.
All right, let's see. Right here, yes. Anybody confused here? Why it is going there? If you have questions, just ask. Now is the time, because after a few more sessions, it will be too late. You will be lagging behind trying to understand lists, and then we are moving on to more complicated things.
Yeah, I don't understand what I was going through.
Okay, which part? This cell here or previous cells?
The one where it's like the Nissan is between Honda and
Okay.
Yamaha.
You understand this up to here? We're just appending, right? Appending to the end. You understand that so far?
Yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah.
here what is happening is I'm instead of appending, I'm using insert method. That takes 2 arguments. This is a function, built-in function, and it takes 2 inputs. First input is the index value where I want to insert. So 0 meaning index 0 is where? Right here in the beginning, right? Do you agree?
Oh, yeah.
So
Yeah.
there I want to add Toyota. This is the element that I want to add to that index number of this list.
Oh, okay.
And then after that, what do I get? Motorcycle has been changed. This was the initial, now it has been changed with this Toyota in the front, right? You agree?
Yeah.
And then I'm doing another insert again at index 2. Now index 2 is where? So this is 0 index number 1, index number 2. So my index number 2 is here, right? There I'm trying to insert Nissan before this. So Nissan comes here, and Yamaha and Suzuki shifts to the right.
Okay.
Right? Okay, good. Removing element from a list. It's as easy as saying delete. Del is a keyword. And giving the index number of the element that you want to delete. Now this removes what? The first element from the list, which in this case is Honda. So you will end up with just the remaining. Easy enough?
So question.
Yes.
If you don't mention delete motorcycle 0, 0, if you don't put anything, what happens?
All right, good question. Let's see. What do you see?
Invalid syntax.
So it's a syntax error. Why? Because it's looking for the syntax. This is incomplete syntax. It's you have square brackets. That means you need to give an index value.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Indexing and slicing. Remember the same thing,
Yeah.
same topic we did over in the last session. So when you do this square brackets, you are basically trying to access a particular element or a range of elements, and you are not providing
Right.
what element you are trying to access, but that will give you a syntax error. Okay. We can do 1 and delete a different thing. So this was the element removed.
Yes. Right. So if you do 2, it will remove another one.
Yeah. So that was one way to remove a particular thing from an index number that you choose. There's also another more popular way to remove item.
One more question.
Yes.
Motorcycle, you have put 1.
Yeah.
So it removed.
Motorcycle
yeah,
1
it
is
removed.
this.
Yamaha is removed. If you say comma.
Comma 2.
Yeah.
No.
Yes.
The syntax. No. The slicing syntax is what? Colon.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Okay.
And if you do 2, what will it do? It will not do much, because it will start from 1 and end before 2, which is still 1. So you are still removing only one.
Okay.
Only one element. Okay.
Okay.
So you can not give any number, and that will start from 1 and remove until the end by default.
Right.
Because you are not providing any index value here. That is the syntax for slicing operation. And let's run. So because we are telling you to start beginning from index value 1 to the end of the list. This is how you specify that. So index value 1 to the end of the list are all removed. Confused?
Good.
Okay, let's move ahead. So again, that was one of this del keyword is one way how you can remove individual or range of elements from a list. Another popular method is the pop method. What does pop do? It removes one single element from the end. Again, if you do not specify a value, it will remove one element from the back of the list. Okay, so let's see an example. This is my list here, motorcycles, and I'll print motorcycles, and then last one bike is this pop method. So one thing you have to remember with the pop method is it removes from this list that last element, right? So last element is this, and it will return that value so that you can save that to another variable. Make sense? Confused? Let me repeat.
It removes, it deletes that value.
Yes, it deletes from that list and gives you that value so that you can save that into another variable. In programming, that is called returning a value. So this method, pop method, returns the last element, and then you can assign that to another new variable of your liking. And then here I'm doing print f string. I'm just printing that last owned bike here again with title, and then the first one bike is with the pop 0. So let's see the example here. So this was my starting list. I did a pop, so this came out and is now assigned into last owned bike, right? The remaining of the list is this after pop. And then here I'm printing last motorcycle I owned was Suzuki, which popped out from there and was saved in last owned bike variable. And then the first motorcycle I owned was Toyota, which came out from pop 0. Okay, so two things you have to remember about pop. It by default removes the last element in the list, and then it will return it to you so that you can save it in a new variable. That last element you can save for use later. Where, okay, I'm giving you a practical scenario. Where is this used? When do we use this pop?
Delete.
Well, we already had delete here, but why do we need pop?
Oh, you mean in line 13?
When you are
Save that delete model.
when you are developing something, when is pop more useful?
Returning a value?
Yes. So let me give you a scenario. Okay. So let's say we are playing a card game. There is a deck of cards with how many cards? 52, 53 cards, right? And that whole deck of cards is, let's say, a list. I'm saving that whole deck of cards as a list data type, and each card is element in that list, right? So I am trying to draw a card out of the hand. So that would be a pop method. So now it is removed from the deck, but I have it on my hand. So I can save it as a variable name saying hand card equals to deck.pop. Make sense?
So for this, that's what you're doing on line 13?
Line 13 is removing the first one.
Okay.
Pop 0.
And then after that, yeah.
Here let's print bike and see. Oh, not the first one, bike. Motorcycles, right? That's what we want to print. See what's in there. So now first we remove with this pop line number 10, we remove last element. Yes?
Yeah, because you have no argument after pop, it removed the last one.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes. And then with
Okay,
this we are
okay.
removing the first one.
With
But
that, we are removing the first one. Which one is removing the first one?
pop 0.
Pop 0. Oh.
You see this? The first motorcycle I owned was, I got that from pop 0 right here, right? This is the last owned bike, and then this is the first bike and the last bike.
Yeah. Okay, you're deleting Toyota. Okay.
Yeah, if I don't give any argument, it is by default doing from the end. Otherwise, I can give index number and also pop that out. But every time I do pop, you have to remember it will be returning something that I can save and use it later.
Okay.
So the scenario I gave is deck of card. You are drawing a card from the deck and putting in your hand. So let's say that deck of card was a list of cards or list data type, right? So each card is element in the list. So let's say this was deck and each card is element in this list. I'm doing pop to get the one from the top and putting in my hand. So saving that as card in my hand.
So which line is saying you're putting that in your hand? Which line?
This line here, instead of last one bike.
Last on bike. Okay.
Instead of last one bike, you can say deck.pop equals to card in hand or card in hand.
Why don't you do that? Yeah, let's do that.
Well, we have to create a bunch of cards, so we can easily do that. Yeah, let's go. So one diamond, let's say, right?
Yeah.
And then one spade, one heart, and what else? Let's say 3 clubs, right? Now this will be my deck of cards. Make sense? Now
Yeah.
easy print, and then this will be card drawn in hand, right?
Yes.
And then deck of card dot pop. Now I'm printing deck of card again, and then
Right.
I will say something like card in hand is deck of card. I don't need title, so it's already capital or number, it doesn't matter. Okay, so I will just comment this out. Oh, by the way, how did I comment this with a shortcut? Anybody knows that?
Hash sign.
Like,
Hash sign.
Control question mark.
Oh, okay.
See that?
Yeah.
Okay, so here I think we're ready. Let's see. So this was my deck, and I removed with the pop, right? So there is a card in my hand.
Yes.
This thing is now in my hand, and the remaining deck is still there on the table.
Correct.
And the card in hand is, no, we removed, deck, instead of deck of card, I want card drawn in hand. See that? So it removed from here and then saved in a variable named card drawn in hand. Understood?
Okay, just give me 1 second. Card drawn in hand, deck of cards, dot pop. Okay, so you are drawing the last. Okay, I got it.
Yeah, I'm drawing one card from the top of the deck and putting that in my hand.
Yeah.
So now the deck still has other 3 elements, and the one that I popped out is in my hand.
Right. So you are on line 10. You are just putting your card in the hand. That's what it says, right?
Yes, I'm taking one card out of that deck.
Yeah. Yes. And you are printing that, and after that, card drawn in hand, and card drawn in hand is equal to deck of the cards. Dot pop. Dot. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Everybody understand this concept? Anybody confused here? Okay. So I can remove this one. Removing an item by value. So this is another method where we can remove or delete items, but by, instead of giving index number or using a pop, I'm giving the value that I want to remove. So here is Toyota. I'm trying to remove Toyota, and it just removes the first occurrence of Toyota. Let's try. Let me put another Toyota somewhere here. Now I have 2 Toyotas, and if I do it again, it will remove the first one. The last one is still there. See?
Okay.
So if I have multiple values, it will just remove the one that occurred first.
Okay. How can you remove at once both of them?
You have to count how many Toyotas there are and repeat that process.
Oh, okay.
Okay, sorting the list permanently with sort method. Now there are 2 sort methods. It's easy to get confused. Even people with a lot of years of experience will get confused with this. There is sort method, and then there is sorted method. Okay, and the sorted method is coming up next. We are doing with sort method now. The difference is one will sort the list permanently, and it will so here, let's say here's a car, right? Cars, list of cars, and then I'm using the sort method to sort this list permanently. So when I print the cars, it will be in alphabetic order from A to Z. And instead, if I want to reverse the order, I have to give this parameter reverse equals to true, and it will switch the order from Z to A. Easy enough. The sorting is sorting a list temporarily with this sorted function. Okay, so let's see here. Again, I have the similar list here, and I will print the original list with cars, and then the sorted list with sorted cars. Okay, and then this again, I'm printing cars again just to show you that with this sorted method, the list is not sorted permanently. The original car is still the same. When I call this method, it just sorts in place and gives you instantly sorted list, a copy maybe, right? But the original cars list is still the same. Compare this, the original one, with this, even after I call the sorted method. The sorted method sorted it temporarily, but the original list did not change. That is not the same what happened here. After I called sort and called print, it was temporarily sorted, so it's changed. The original order is gone. You cannot get that back. But here you can get that back. That's the difference.
So what is the point? What is the point of sorting then?
Well, sometimes you need
if
sometimes you need a copy of a sorted list, and that's where you will use this. You do not want to change the original list, but you just want the same list in a sorted order.
Okay.
All right. Printing a list in reverse order, just do reverse, call the reverse method. It's not sorting anything, it's just reversing the order that they appeared in the original list. Okay, who knows what this is? Who remembers? What will this print out?
Value from reverse.
Okay.
Okay.
So here we had original car. This was the original list, and then we reversed it and printed the reverse, right? So original and the reverse here, and now this is saved with this reverse. By calling this reverse method, we are saving the reverse content in the cars, and with this again we are reversing again, so going back to the original one here. Basically this and the reverse are exactly the same. It does the same operation. Somebody taking photos?
Yeah, I did.
I am sharing this with you, so you have the exact same thing that I have. This is session 2.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, finding the length of a list. There is a popular, this is very popular. Get used to this. Get used to this, guys. Length of some sequence, including list, string, anything, right? A length is a built-in data type, built-in method, and it is super useful. It will give you the length of this list in this case, because cars is a list here. And what is the length? 4. Removing duplicates from a list. Wow, this is great, right? How do I remove? People will be scratching head with this in the interview, and this is a one-liner thing. You see this? Set is a data type. The nice thing about set is it will remove duplicates if there is any. If you try to store a set data type with duplicate values, it will only store unique values. There will be no duplicates. So in this case, I have an original list with 2 Toyotas. And when I convert that with typecasting using set type, that duplicate will be removed, and I'm putting that back into a list again. So there's 2 typecasting here. First typecasting is set, and then I'm typecasting back into another list, and then putting that everything back into the same cars variable. And then when I print cars, there will be no duplicates. Good.
Good.
All right, that's all I have so far in working with list. Oh, of course there are a lot more and people can spend a week working just with list and still there will be things remaining to learn. But we have to move on and go to loops. No, that's the point for today, right? So back to presenting. No. So we are back to this. Oh, I think I did the wrong one. Okay, for and while loop. I'm just gonna go quickly over this. There are a lot of things, but let's see. So why do we need loops? Let's take a variation of the example that we saw in the last session. What we saw was weather checking application that we try to do, and we introduced if logic to make a decision and find out when to go out, when not to go out. But here's a slightly variation of that. This time we want to make an application that checks weather report so that we know when to get out for an ice cream. So a simple one, right? Same thing we did, very back to basics. We don't have a if logic here. Now again, if a strictly procedural approach can perform this task for one day, we know that. But what if we want to write the same program that repeats the same steps for another day? So we would repeat step number 1, 2, 3 another time, right? One more time. The same steps. We're writing again. And the program will work just fine. It will just have to execute the same steps. Now you will be asking, what if we want to repeat that for another day? The program will be even longer, and you will soon realize that this procedural approach, where we repeatedly write the same steps over and over again, makes our program very lengthy and redundant. Okay, so what we need is some kind of looping mechanism that executes this step repeatedly or in some iteration. So I only write those original 3 steps that were here, and then I want to give the interpreter some kind of mechanism to go back into the first statement and execute back from there. And this is called loops in programming language. It's just a repetition of some code block that I want to execute again and again. So Python's loop statement allows us to do exactly this. Now there are 2 variations of loop. A for loop is typically used when we need repetitive execution of same statements for a fixed number of times. And then there's while loop that is typically used when we need repetitively execute same statements until some condition is met or not met. So for loop for fixed number of times, while loop while some condition is met. Remember that, okay? Now, okay, pop quiz here. How many types of loop are there in Python?
2,
3.
2.
3.
Okay.
2 types, for loop and while loop. There is no do while loop in Python. That is in some other programming languages like C, C++, C#, Java. We don't have a do while loop here, not yet. There's only 2 types, remember that. And again, for loop is to repeat steps for a fixed number of times. If you know how many times you want to repeat, you will use for loop. If you do not know how many times you want to repeat, you will use while loop. So like I mentioned again, for loop is used when we want to repeat fixed number of times. The for loop is used to iterate over elements of a sequence such as string, tuple, or a list, or any other iterable object. Here's the syntax for creating a for loop in Python. For item in sequence, we will write a code block with at least 1 or more statements. It begins with a keyword for. Notice that keyword for here at the front. The item indicates individual element taken from a sequence, like a list that we just worked. This is exactly why I wanted you to learn list before I had to go to teaching you loops, because every loop most likely will have some kind of sequence involved, or at least most of them. So again, item indicates individual element taken from the sequence in the order that they appear in the sequence. Okay, so whatever first appears in the sequence will be assigned to item value or item variable. Item is just a variable in this case that the for loop uses, and I'll show you later exactly what I meant. The in keyword is a membership operator, if you remember, and is used here in the for loop syntax to iterate over different items of the sequence. The sequence itself can be any iterable, such as a string, tuple, list, set, or dictionary, or a range data type. And we will see, most likely see example of each one of them, hopefully. The statements again can be one or more executable lines of code that will be repeatedly executed for each different value of item taken from the sequence. And notice this colon sign at the end of line 1 and the tab or white space at the beginning of line 2. If you remember, just like in the conditional statement we learned in the last session, the colon and the tab are very important part of the syntax here in the loop as well. Without this, the interpreter will give an error. So remember that. A colon at the end and then this tab after this colon line. Whatever statements you put a tab on belongs to the for loop. So let's learn what happens when we execute a for loop using a sequence. The sequence, which in this case is a range data type, I'm using range 5 here, so it will start from 0, 1, 2, 3 and end at 4. This range is evaluated once. The first element provided by the sequence is then assigned to the variable named item using the standard operation or standard assignment operation, and then the statements are executed. This repeats for each item provided by the sequence, which is range. So for every item 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 in this range, this item variable will have that value in each iteration. When all the items have executed, meaning there are no more items left in the sequence, then the loop will terminate. Here's an example. So I'm doing for item in range 5 print item. So every time you will get a new value from this range iterator sequence, and then it will just print that item, which is 0, 1, 2, 3 and 4. So if you look at flow diagram, for every item in the sequence, it is checking if it is the last element of the sequence. As long as it is not the last element, which goes to the false, it executes the bunch of statements that are within the for loop, and it goes back to checking again the next element. When we get to the last element, this becomes true and then exit the for loop. Any questions? Okay. Do we even need loops? Okay, who can answer this? Why do we need loops in programming?
Have to keep repeating the same code again.
Yes. So loops allow programmers to shorten what could be hundreds of lines of code to just a few lines. We just write the code once and repeat it as many times as we need. So let's learn about while loops. All that was for loop, okay, just a for loop. Now, like I mentioned earlier, the while loop is typically used when we need to repeatedly execute statements while some condition is satisfied. Here's the syntax for creating while loop. Very similar. We will say while some expression, we want to run that bunch of statements. Again, it starts with a keyword while, and here's the flowchart for that. We check whether the condition is true. condition meaning this expression here. And if that comes to true, as long as this is true, this will keep on executing and goes back to the loop. So if the condition is true, statement will be executed and goes back to the checking until the expression becomes false, and then the loop exits. So what do you notice from here? The while loop statement is used for repeating execution as long as this expression is true. So until there is some mechanism that you change the expression to become false, this loop will run forever. That is called infinite loop, and that is something you want to avoid. Okay, anytime you create a while loop, there should be a mechanism to stop the while loop. Keep that in mind. Anytime there is a while loop, you should have something in your code that will terminate the while loop. And by the way, this false can be at the first iteration of the while loop. You can check the condition as soon as it's false, without executing the statements, it will just exit the loop. Pop quiz here. What will be the output of the following code? While true, print hello.
Hello.
How many times?
Infinite amount of time.
Right.
Yeah, infinite.
Yes. This will continuously print hello until we force the program to end. And this is exactly what is called infinite loop. I want to run a program while a counter is positive. What would be a better option, a for loop or a while loop? Anybody pitch in?
While loop.
Anybody thinks for loop or anything differently? No? Okay. So in this, both loops can be used equally. It's purely based on user's preference. And here is how you would use it. For both cases, on the left I have a while loop used, on the right I have for loop used. Both it starts by declaring or creating a variable named counter, integer value. And inside the while loop, look at that. My mechanism to stop the while loop is I'm decrementing the counter every iteration. So as long as the counter is not 0, this will continue. It is as simple as saying while counter. So as long as there is a positive value for the counter, this loop will continue. So it goes on printing 3, 2, 1, and at 0, while counter is false, so it will exit the while loop. In the for loop, we are using range to create a sequence of numbers that starts from 3, ends before 0, and decrements by 1 value every time. And that will be stored in this variable I, and I'm printing I every time for each iteration. So again, it starts from 3, I will be 3, so it prints 3. Next, I will be decremented by 1, so I will be 2, and then I will be decremented by 1 again, which will be 1. And therefore, after 3 iterations, the for loop ends. Okay, we'll do more examples on the Colab. Which loop to use in this case? I want to run a program that loops through a list of items. Would a for loop or a while loop be better?
For loop.
Yes, this is a typical scenario where you use for loop. I want to develop a game, which one would be a better choice? That's all the information you have, guys. As a developer, you are trying to develop a game. So which loop is useful?
While loop.
Yes, this is a typical scenario where we would use a while loop. For example, you do not want, as a user of the game, right? You are playing the game. You do not want the program to end abruptly, and you don't know what's going on. You want the program or the game to end only when you try to exit the game. Make sense? So it should run as long as you are saying I want to play. And I'll quickly go over break, pass, and continue statement before we jump into the collab thing. Okay, break, pass, and continue. When I say break, think about breaking out of a loop. When I say pass, think about I want to do nothing. Okay, I just want to pass this iteration. And when I say continue, that means almost the same thing. Pass will go without doing anything much. It will go to next iteration. So what is the difference between pass and continue? So like I said, when I say pass, okay, let's just go one by one. If the command break is executed within a loop, it halts evaluation of the loop at that point. So this is one of the way you can break or terminate an existing running loop. And then the control passes to the next expression that is just outside of the loop that you just broke out from. And keep in mind the break statement, if you have multiple loops, it will only terminate the innermost loop or the nearest loop that you are in, or where the break is in. It will only break out of the innermost loop. Now pass is a null. Yeah.
So basically what you're saying is, let's say for example, if there is a loop without a counter, it will continue to run infinitely. So
if it is a while loop,
in
yes.
order to,
if you do not have a mechanism in the while loop to stop the execution, then
stop it.
Yeah. But
Okay.
if you have a break at certain point, then yeah, this will also terminate the loop. Not only while loop,
so
this will also break for loop or while loop, either one.
Yeah. Okay.
And if you have a loop inside another loop, then it will only break out from the inner loop, but the outer loop will continue. And pass is a null operation which is executed, nothing happens. It is useful for as a placeholder, like when you create a new function or a class that we are going to use towards the second half of our tutorial or training sessions. That's where most likely we will come across using a pass statement. And continue statement continues until the next continue with the next cycle of the iteration, or the next iteration of the nearest enclosing loop, so innermost loop basically. Okay, so with that, let's quickly jump over to the loops collab. I have shared this collab with you. You already should have this on the link under session planning. So let's quickly go over using or seeing some example of for loops. So here's a simple for loop that we already saw using range 1 to 5. This will what? How many outputs should it give? 1, 2, 3, and 4, I guess, right? Anybody confused here? So instead of having 4 print statements, how many statements am I using here? Only 1. And for loop does the work for me. It runs multiple times, 4 times exactly here, because this range goes from 1 to 4, stops before 5. Looping through an entire list. So I have a list here. How do I loop and access each element every time? So the easy way is use in membership operator. So magician is my original list. In that magician list, I am picking a magician every time. So for each magician in that list, I will print the name of that magician. And why is this weird looking out? Because I have this escape character with T and escape character with N. That means I'm doing a tab here. There's 4 spaces here in the front, a tab with this, and then printing next line between each print statement, so adding a blank line. Next item, looping through all values in a tuple. Pretty similar. We're again using in membership operation. In these dimensions, I'm picking each dimension and printing them. So it also works with list, it also works with tuple, it also works with range, all kind of sequences. Easy enough, right? Anybody has a question so far? What kind of data is this? What kind of data type is word? With this curly brackets, it's a set. Other than that, it just looks like a loop. But again, like we discussed earlier, set doesn't have any duplicates. So here, oh, what is this thing? It's just a dummy variable that we create only for this for loop, and we are going to forget after that. And this is a valid variable name, okay? You can just name a variable underscore and move on. Nothing wrong with that. So for each item in words, these items, I'm printing the item and the length of the item. And why is this coming out in different orders? Because set does not maintain elements in any particular order. Even if we created a set with this, it is actually remembering or storing with different order. That's another property of set. It doesn't have duplicate and it doesn't have any particular order.
So that what is that len doing? Is it
len is the
giving the
function.
length?
Len is the function we did earlier, right? Here in list, built-in function that I told you earlier. In in discussing list.
So that gives the length, right?
Yeah, length of each word. So this is word, remember? Out of the words is this whole thing, right?
Yeah.
And from words, I'm taking every word individually. And length of that word is 6. Length of another word is 12. Length of cat is 3.
Okay, got it.
Good question. Okay. So here, what would be the outcome of the following code? I have I equals to 9, so that's where I start from, and then I'm printing I. For I in range 1 to 5, that goes from 1 to 3, 4 again, just like we did earlier. I'm printing the value of I, and then I'm doing I plus 10, and then printing that I again. And then after the for loop ends, okay, remember this doesn't have the same indentation level. These are indented, this is not, so this is outside the for loop. Why am I showing you this example? Because I want you to remember one thing here. Let's run. So I started with 90, that's 90, right? And then I print I. So that's the printed out here. For I in range 1 to 5. So this is my variable I that is starting here. Remember, so 2 things here. For loop will always create a variable even if there was not one created here. So the I variable will be created inside when we do this for loop. But now since I is already here, it will just replace that variable I. Actually, I would like to do this on Python tutor. Edit the code with this. So okay, here what's this global frame? With that first line, I'm creating I variable with value 90, right? And then I'm printing I, that comes out as a print here. Now it starts a for loop when I hit the next button. Now remember in the last one I had I 90 originally. As soon as I go into the for loop, that I, notice that I value, it will change back to 1, which is coming from this range. Make sense? So it is not creating a different I with different scope inside a for loop. In Python, for loop doesn't have a scope. That's the point that I'm trying to show here. Python doesn't have for loop with its own scope. It is using the
So why is
global.
it starting? Why is it starting from 1 again? It printed 90. That's I understand. And then
Yeah. So range 1 to 5 gives you a bunch of numbers, right? 1, 2, 3, and 4.
right. Yes.
And every each of those values will be assigned to I,
Right.
one at a time. For each iteration, each value will be taken from this sequence and then assigned to I. That's why it is changing the value of I now. Confused?
And it should be 2 for the next one.
Yeah, let's go. Now it will print what? 1, which is this, right?
1,
printing
yes.
I. Now it is incrementing I by 10. So I will be 11.
Oh.
And then I'm printing that value again. So I will get 11 here. Now the loop goes back up. Now I should change to 2 and print that again and increment by 10 again. So it becomes 12. And now print 12 outside on the console, right? And the loop goes back up. Is this useful to understand for loop? Is this making sense? Continue. Anybody confused? I think people are confused, or what? Are you not trying to go out from mutes?
Yeah, I think everybody is confused.
Okay, let's go to the front. I'm starting over, okay? I start with I equals to 90. Nothing new there.
Nothing new there.
I'm
right?
printing that value. Nothing new there.
Yeah.
Now what for loop does is evaluates this first. Range 1 to 5.
That line just that line will give you 1, 2, 3, 4.
1, 2, 3, and 4.
Right.
Yes.
1, 2, 3, and 4. Yes.
Yeah, that gets evaluated first, and then from that evaluation, every item will be assigned to I, one at a time for each iteration.
Right.
So for the first iteration, I will be 1. Second iteration, I will be 2.
Yes. 2.
That,
right.
Okay. So here right now, when I click next, I will be 1. And then I print that I 1. Oops, I did twice there. I will be 1, and then with the next I print that 1. I change that to 11 and then print it, right? And then goes back to the beginning of the loop. Now I will be 2, and then
right.
I'll print 2 and
it will be 12. Okay.
And it changed to 12 and then printed 12, and now it goes back to the top again. I print.
So it should be,
so
the
now
next one should be.
I will be 3.
3.
I print 3 and increment to 13 and then print 13.
Right.
And then it goes back again. And now I will be 4.
Right.
And prints 4, adds 10, and prints 14.
Yeah, yeah.
And then now it goes back again, right?
Yeah.
But now what should happen here? Range only goes up to 4, right?
It should pick up 2. You start with 2, right?
No, we already had 4. We already had I equals to 4, right? Remember? And this range only goes up to 4. So now when it goes back, it checks if there's more item left in the sequence. If there's none, then it goes back outside the for loop. And now what is the final value of I? This 14, right? I is still 14 in the global frame. That will be printed once more. I hope this was helpful.
Yeah, okay.
Alright, let's go back. So that was our example. We printed all those here. Now combine range and length to iterate over indexes of sequence. Here I have a list, and with length of that list I will get what? 5, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So basically with this length sentence I'm getting 5, and then I'm doing range 5 again. So this whole thing will give me 0, 1, 2, 3 and 4 again, and assigning those values to index numbers individually, one at a time. So what do I get? 0, and then use that index number to access element from this list. So sentence 0, sentence 1, sentence 2, in that order. Good. Here I'm using slice. I have a list of players, and then I'm only trying to print from the beginning to the third index. So players 0, players 1 and players 2, which will be 0, 1 and 2, these players. This is the slicing operation. This is indexing operation. Can we do loops inside loops? Of course.
Yes.
And here's an example. I have a list here for word. In these words I am printing word and length of word, that we did something similar earlier, right? And then for each word now I'm using another for loop here. For each letter in that word I'm also printing letter. So what should be the output here? I will be printing these words individually, and for each word I will also print individual letters. That way. So I'm printing that first cat3 is coming from here. Print word and then length of word. And then in the same iteration I have started another loop. And for that word cat, I'm printing each letter every time. So CAT will come out. And then it goes back to this outer for loop and prints another animal with the length and prints each letter. And that is all.
So so okay, let me do words print length of words.
So first iteration,
okay,
first value of word will be cat. And
right.
And inside,
So
while we are with the cat, it will print each letter from that word.
You're right. Okay, and then the letter. Okay.
Yeah. Now it's easy to see because I am naming my variables accordingly, right? I could name this variable differently and then you will be more confused. So in programming, it's always better to use sensible variable names when you name a variable. Nested for loop to print multiplication table. Okay, so here I have a range and then another range. This is going from 1, 2, 3. This is going from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Make sense? And then I have two for loops here. The first for loop is using my values. The second for loop is using this range of values. And it's as easy as that. Let me show you the printout. 1, 2, 3 blocks, that is coming from here. And then for each block I have 5 values. So 1 times 1, 1 times 2, 1 times 3, 1 times 4, 1 times 5, and then it goes to 2. 2 times 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then it goes to 3. Easy enough. These are all mathematical operations, nothing new. We already learned that in day 2. All I'm using is implementing that inside nested for loop. And for each outer for loop, after the inner for loop ends, I am printing out a blank space.
So on line 7 for x in my values.
My values is this.
So you have not defined x anywhere, right? But
no, that's the point. For loop will create this variable x.
Okay. Oh, okay.
And this for loop will create another variable y. You want to run this on Python tutor and see? I can do that quickly if you want. If not, we can move on. But the point is, yes, for
Yeah, we can. Yeah.
Yeah, what do you want? Go ahead.
Yeah, we can move on. We can move on.
Okay. Yeah, just remember the point is every for loop will, if the variable is not already defined, then it will create. But if the variable is already defined, then it will replace the value for each iteration.
Okay. Got it.
That we saw earlier, right? It was already defined, but we replaced that here. If not defined, then it will define for you. Okay, so that's all I have for loop. Next is while loop. So who can say what is the output here?
Infinite hello, right?
Yeah.
Hello,
Do you
infinite
want me to
hello.
run this? I would not want to run this because I know this is infinite loop and I would have to force my Explorer or press some button and it will get stuck, I'm afraid. But let's hit that. Here we go. It is printing hello forever and forever, right? And I will have to stop this, force to stop this. It's going forever. So let me clear that output and we're back. So here, while loop that decrements a variable until it reaches a certain value. So I start with number 10 and while my number is more than 3, I will print that value. What if I don't have this? If I don't have this, this will again be another infinite loop. But since I have this mechanism to reduce number, it is reducing number for every iteration and checking the new value. So as long as it is above 3, this will run. And as soon as number is greater than a 3 is not satisfied, the loop will end. Get it?
Yeah.
Okay, so now here's an example using a flag. This is just a prompt, right? I'm creating a string and then adding this new string to that original string and storing back into the prompt. So all this is doing is just this creating a whole concatenation of two different strings, adding them together. And here's my flag. Active is true by default. And while active, I'm creating a message variable with this as message back to the user. That's what input does, right? Input is giving me this prompt with this message showing and telling me, tell me something, and it will repeat back to me. As long as I do not enter quit as my message, this active will be true. As soon as I hit quit, active, the flag is now changed to false, and that will end the program. So let's run. It is showing me something. I can put garbage in, I will get garbage out, and the program will repeat again. I will do hello and it will give me hello back. So as long as I do not quit, the program will run forever. So here I entered quit and that's the end of the program. So that's one way or mechanism to use a flag or something to indicate when to stop. So while flag is true, this program will run. And as soon as I do flag is false, that will be the end of the program.
So active is not the built-in function, right?
No, it's not a function. It's a variable. It has Boolean value true.
Yeah, it's a variable which is assigned to true, right?
Yeah, the true value is assigned to active. Now active has a value of true. And as soon as long as this evaluates to true, which in this case is true, this while loop will run. Now here, only when the message is quit, I will change that value to false.
Okay.
And that's when the message ends. You see this, if message is quit, I changed my flag to false, otherwise I will just print the message out.
Right.
The message was what the user entered on the prompt.
Right.
Okay, not too complicated, but here's another example. Loop that continues until some condition is met. So typically people, remember I told you earlier when is while loop most used, maybe making games. So let's say this is a game, right? And I am saying I'm not done. Done is false. So that means I'm not done. And as long as I'm not done, I will run this loop. Before that, I have two variables here. This is my flag. This is my flag that I'm saying I'm not done by default. And here I'm creating two variables. And as long as I'm not done, what is this? Confusing? Anybody confused here? Not done evaluates to what? Because done is false, not done will be true, right?
Right.
So this basically is while true. Back to what we had originally, while true. It will run forever, right? So this is just another way to say while true. But here I'm twisting the story and saying done is false and I'm saying not done here. Still while true. That evaluates to true. So it is still while true. While it is true, I'm printing hello and changing current number, which started from 0. And then if that current number is equal to total number, I will say I'm done. So as long as this number is reached, or until this number is reached, the while loop will continue. Make sense?
Yeah.
So I have three things to go just quickly. Break statement here. Remember I told you what break statement is. It will break out of a loop. So is it breaking out of this if else? No, it is breaking out of this while loop here. Let's see. Enter the name of the city that you have visited. And again, this is while true, so it will run forever until I print city equals to quit. As long as I do not enter that, it will keep asking me the same question. I can enter whatever I want and it will keep giving me the same prompt. Just similar to what we did earlier, but I'm quitting in a different way now. I'm quitting with a break statement here. If I enter quit, then I will break out of the while loop. Cool? Anybody confused? Okay. So here I have what?
So go back. So if you don't quit, and then it will print. I would love to go to.
If city what I entered is not quit, then it will go to here, print out. I would love to go to that city, right?
Right. Yeah. That's what I.
And here I'm not entering quit so far. Only here I enter quit. So it goes into this. If this is true,
Yeah.
then it will break out.
Yeah.
This is something similar. I will skip this and let you play with this in your Colab notebook. And please go to visualize the execution in pythontutor.com and try to understand what is happening here. I've given you the note what to expect. Okay, so let's move on to pass. The simplest while loop is, so while true I will pass. Again, this is infinite loop. There's no point running this because it will run forever like we saw earlier. But this is a valid statement here. If you do not know what to implement, that is when you will enter this pass statement to make that a valid syntax. Okay.
Now, what do you mean by that?
So if I do not have
If
this,
you,
if I do not have that, while true, I need to do something, right? I need to have at least one
Right,
statement
right.
here. At least one statement is required by syntax.
Right.
But I do not know what to implement yet as a developer. I do not have the requirement sent to me to implement that.
Oh, okay.
So I'm waiting for requirement to come. While I wait, I'm writing my outline of my program, what it should look like.
Yeah,
So
got it.
so here I'm just making a template, and once the requirement comes, I will change that.
Yeah.
But until that point, I will just pass this for now.
Yeah.
Okay, so continue statement again goes to next loop. It does nothing in that loop, and it will just continue with the next loop. So here current number is 0. While current number is less than 10, we will run this loop, right? Make sense? We will run this because current number is 0. This is valid, right? 0 is less than 10. So we will be running these iterations, and in each iteration I will increment the value by 1. If the modulo is 2, that means it's even number. Well, modulo 2 is 0, that means it's an even number. So I will say I found an even number, and the number will be printed out. Otherwise, I will continue to the next number. Let's run this. So for every even number, it will print out. If this is not true, it goes to else, and what is in the else? Only continue. So it continues to the next cycle. If the number is odd, I will do nothing but just move on to next cycle. Right, so that's all. That is actually all that I have for today, and I will wrap up. I will also send the assignments and project work. Okay, so there are 3 things to work on in the project, and I will be I think I have something here. So this is the code I have to assign people, and when I run this, okay, so these are the people that will pair together to work on the assignments, and you both will work on it and submit the work by before the class next Monday. That's 1 week from today.
So what are we supposed to do?
I will send it in Discord, but if you want, I can share the things quickly here. So there are a bunch of assignments, and there will be these projects. The first is relatively easy. Second, maybe you will need to think, and then third is a bit challenging. So if this is challenging, I would encourage you to work smart and spend more time than a few hours on this. If you are working more than a few hours on this, ask for help. That's my note to you. But there will be 1, 2, and 3 problems on this project.
Okay, so these are all in.
I will share the slides. Yeah, all of them will be in the slides, and I will actually share the slide, and also in a different message I will share all the assignments, and then in a separate message I will send all the project work, all 3 slides as a screenshot.
Okay.
All right, any question for me? No? All right.
No, thanks.
Thank you guys.
Right time.
That's it.
We're done with the reading.
Yeah.